Oh, there you go. It's hard to keep up. The first thing we will do is communications from mayor and council. And I think what I'm going to do today is do it in alphabetical order for a change. So Councillor Bocek, I'm putting you on the spot, number one.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last month was like most other months, a lot of communication with constituents about issues they have with services being provided by the municipality, the district, and the province. Seems like most of the complaints this month were about the province and the district and not about the township. So that's good news, because my ear's almost been talked off about planning issues and building issues. So good news on that front. Participated in quite a few, I guess we call them nature experiences. Got together with a few groups and went into the bush to just look at the effects that humans have had in this township, what effects humans have had on our crown lands and our nature areas, and found it very informative. Outside of that, just business as normal, and no real concerns from any of my constituents at this time.
All right, thank you. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. A very busy month. It seems the summer months in particular really are hopping, and even though we are social distancing and sheltering in place, et cetera, there's still quite a bit of activity. And I guess after our last set of meetings, I attended a few things, public events, in fact. I went on the 18th of July to Truax Island, which is in Sans Souci, and went through a rock walk with Dr. Nick Isles. So that was kind of neat, especially on an island that sort of looks like Halloween candy, very striped and kind of neat. So that was good. And what other good things have happened? A lot of contact about a variety of different matters with our constituents during the course of the previous month. I even went to a cocktail party, believe it or not, on the weekend. So things are starting to come back to normal. We were outside, but it was still kind of neat, and probably 50 or 60 people. So anyway, that's what I've been up to, and keeping in touch with my constituents. I think that's all. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. I did sit through the virtual session regarding mooring buoys, and found that very interesting. So just thought I'd mention that I was paying attention to that issue, because it is an important issue out on Georgian Bay, or in fact inland lakes. If there are any mooring buoys there, it'd be the same kind of thing. So that's it for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. It's been a busy month, probably like most people for the summer. I'm going to say that most of my communication with my constituents and residents of the area here has been mostly on the problems with camping and noise and fireworks and so on. And I took the opportunity to take a bit of a run around and take a look at some of the camping sites on Crown land. Most campers take care of the land, but we have a number of sites that unfortunately there's a lot of things left behind, a lot of cigarette butts and fireworks that have been spent but not picked up, and that's a bit of a concern. So I think this is something that MNRF hopefully will be keeping a close eye on as the summer moves on, as most people are trying to see at this time. Also, quite a few calls on the survey regarding the rental of vacation homes, which it's been quite interesting. A lot of people don't want to do the survey for various reasons, but I've had some really good feedback from people that are badly affected by rental vacations. And some of the comments have been quite interesting, actually, in regards to, although they are badly affected by the rentals that are bought specifically to rent out and not live in at any time, they are not opposed to, when asked the question, they are not opposed to people that are renting for a few weeks of the year, perhaps to help them, people with their taxes or whatever, because those people actually live in those and respect their neighbors. So I found some of these calls really quite interesting to speak about. I'm sure that's going to come up for conversation later. Quite a few calls on our problem that we're having right now with the Miners Bay parking, public parking with vandalism, slashing of tires, and of course, our OPP and they are looking at this. They are trying their best to do what they can, I'm sure. Unfortunately, it is such a remote area and not covered by security cameras. I think that makes their job very difficult, of course. And most disturbing is we now have groups of people within the community that are trying to band together to do their own, I don't know what the right word is, but they would like to take things in their own hands. And that to me is really concerning. So I think we all need to stay tuned and hopefully we don't see that happen. Spent a little bit of time on Facebook and with other members of the public just to try and promote our town hall meeting coming up for the core services. And hopefully we're getting people that are registering for that. I've also taken a little bit of time to walk through the bush to see what's going on with our nature. And again, a little bit of disappointment with some of the areas and things being discarded in the bush with our ATVers. Most certainly they are welcome to be running through the bush. It's open for everybody to use, but I was a bit disappointed to see some of the things that were, aside from the land being ripped up badly, just some of the things that were left behind. Other than that, it has been busy like everyone else, and I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelton.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Kutsier. I'll start off by commenting that even though our friends, the gypsy moth, the LDD moths, are mostly gone, the memories of them are not long forgotten. There's still a lot of people wondering what we're going to do next year. I have taken the step in my ward to register as a contact with the aerial spraying program, and am in the process of trying to collect names for as many people as we can in our community who would be interested in an aerial spraying program. It's not a township related matter, but I thought it would be important to mention that. We've learned that it's critical that the volume of names that we collect is very significant, because if it's small, 10 or 15, the aerial spraying company will likely ignore our area. So anybody who is interested needs to communicate with me and allow me to get them on a list so that we can have a program that might save some of the things next year. It looks like this year was a warning sign, and next year will be a problem in earnest. I sat in on the Honey Harbor AGM, as you did, Mayor. Sadly, they didn't get quorum, but we did have an opportunity to have some discussion. That was, I think, very helpful. Councillor Cooper mentioned a Rock Talk program. I was privileged to be invited along with Councillor Jarvis. And I found it, first of all, very interesting to go through the outer channel all the way up to Frying Pan Island, and then to have an education about the rocks and the history of our community, which I really had no real understanding for. So I thought that was very helpful. During the month, I offered to Dr. Patchow Fraser and her MBA, sorry, not MBA, her doctoral students, the opportunity to stay at my cottage while they were doing their wetlands investigations. And it gave me an opportunity to broach with them the topic that we have a serious problem going on in our community. We do all kinds of water testing, but nobody connects the dots between the out of control aquatic vegetation growth and what that really means. Obviously, the nutrients from the human effect are getting into the water, but they're not remaining in the water column, and therefore the water studies continue to suggest that maybe our waters aren't so bad, but in fact, we have massive out of control aquatic vegetation growth. And so I think I've got their ear finally, and that they will begin to connect those dots and give us insights into what the real issues are with the human effect that really hasn't been reflected in the water testing examples. I attended a special meeting of the Georgian Bay Library Board, and I'll leave that aside at the moment. I had my one-on-one with Julie B to talk about finance matters, and we had I thought, phenomenal conversation, and I really appreciated the time that she allocated to me. And then, kind of last but not least, lots of communications with residents, several and concerns about the communications or the lack of communications getting to people. The community that I engage with, that generally speaking is in Ward 4, really aren't social media magnets, if you will. And so everything we do in social media is kind of a lost cause when it comes to the majority of property owners in my community. And I think that's a serious concern that we need to address. But those who did get exposed to the surveys had some very significant concerns that they wanted to share. I won't go through them. I think we've all been copied on one very insightful letter from a very astute cottager. Someone with great expertise that we might want to lean on a little bit when it comes to trying to do future surveys. But anyway, that's a wrap from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Jarvis.
Hey, good morning. Library Board Committee of Adjustment. Committee of Adjustment was interesting in that it was a short meeting in relative terms. And I think that's just a product of our planning department being a little bit short on bodies to get things done, which is a little concerning, I think, from everybody's perspective. And I do hope that we can get that straightened away. I know there's good talent in there as it stands, but boy, oh boy, do we need more people to help get things through the system. Other than that, I don't have a lot to report. I was also at a True Acts for that rock talk. I thank Peter Cooper for inviting me to join him on the route up. It was fun using the Navionics software to get there. I don't know that we would have otherwise. It's kind of fun, but it also indicates how many people today using just a little bit of software can go almost wherever they want in a boat, which in and of itself can be somewhat concerning, but that is the way things are, I guess, with technology. Other than that, social gatherings, yes, a little bit more than normal than we've had for quite a while, as a matter of fact. Part of that was our family company AGM. The mayor will be happy to know I use the land acknowledgement statement that we use at our council meetings for that meeting as well. I think it's extremely important. We also use it at our library board meetings, which I think is crucial. These are good things for people to keep in mind and pass on, and I think that's a very good way to do it. Other than that, yeah, I was hoping to be at a party on the weekend as well, but I had technical troubles, and of course, being on the water with a boat that conks out, you just can't call CAA and get somebody to tow you back. So it was a bit of a challenge getting home, but it was fun. Missed the party though. Rats. Anyway, that's good. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Rienko.
Thank you. It was a fairly busy month for me with a lot of phone calls and a lot of inquiries, a lot of comments and interest on the Gypsy Moths, as Councillor Hazelton has done. There's a few groups on the lake who are getting involved in aerial spraying, but I'm going to keep out of it for now. A lot of water quality issues. As you know, Stewart Lake is involved in this causation study being done by the district. I've inputted my data into their studies so they can determine why there is such a number of algae blooms happening up in Stewart Lake. There's another one going on now. We've had an algae bloom on 6 Mile. And because of the warm spring, we have a lot more weeds this year throughout a lot of the inland lakes. And the Eurasian milfoil is getting out of hand in a lot of the lakes too, and that's a concern. A number of road issues came up, and I've sent some stuff to Brad and other people on that. I had a meeting with the SSCA. We had a quarterly meeting on, what was it, July the 26th. I think I've sent some information out to each of you about that meeting and some of the documents that resulted from that meeting. And a couple of things on the waste management with the district, and that's about it.
All right, thank you very much. I as well had a very busy month, as many of you have noted. When all our seasonal residents are in town, many of them make phone calls, send emails, what have you, to update us on things, and certainly got quite a bit of communication on the challenge of short-term rentals and the effect it has on the immediate neighbors, and comments about, as has already been mentioned a few times, the abuse of the land by visitors, and unfortunately, even though they are a small minority, they leave far too big a footprint behind them of garbage and destruction. Certainly comments on fireworks. Kind of glad I missed the rock walk that 3 of the councilors went on. Otherwise, we would have had to declare a council meeting if I'd been there. So glad I wasn't able to make that one, but I have been in quite a few in the past, and they are very interesting. And that's what I call a true long-term perspective on things around here. You know, when we're talking about when the rocks were formed that make up our 30,000 plus islands in the area. I had the pleasure on July 17th of joining in on the 6 Mile Lake Pride Boat Parade, the 2nd annual. And it was a lot of fun, but also a great opportunity to get a tour of much of the lake and to see the range of residences on that lake. And so I quite enjoyed that opportunity. On the 19th, I was here when we raised the Pride flag. Muskoka Pride Week was a couple of weeks ago. And so that's always a good and fun thing to do. I had on the 20th, I was at the Biosphere the AGM, their annual meeting. Had the great pleasure on the 23rd to meet with Professor Peter Russell, who I made mention of a month ago. And thanks to Councillor Jarvis, I got a chance to meet with him and had a very enjoyable chat about governance and especially his history studying that with Indigenous peoples in our country for decades. Had the opportunity, a personal opportunity on the 25th to go to the Georgian Bay General Hospital Emergency Ward to see how well it worked. And I can tell you it was, they do a very good job. I was very impressed. I also, as Councillor Hazelton mentioned, I had a chat with Julie B. that was so enjoyable. We had a round 2. And I think that was very greatly appreciated that. July 28th, the Lieutenant Governor hosted something that she called Shaping Sustainability in Ontario. It was a day-long webinar. It was amazing, the group of people she collected, and they spoke on a number of different topics in forms of discussions, including science and sustainability in the arts, grassroots-led sustainability, cities and institutions, and building sustainable businesses and economies. It was a day well spent. I'm very pleased to note that both Ms. Gunby and Ms. Schneier also attended this webinar. And I took away quite a few things from it, but I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. One was the word Ubuntu. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced. U-B-U-N-T-U, African. And amongst his translations are, I think the simplest one is I am because we are. And what it basically is emphasizing that we're all part of a community. We're not individuals, but we're part of a community. And I think that's extremely important as we discuss matters, and especially when it comes to sustainability in our future. And I thought that just summed it up nicely, Ubuntu. And the one expression I quite enjoyed that somebody said is that we can only go so fast as trust allows. And I thought, that's kind of sometimes summarizes the challenges that we face as we do our work. But no, it was a very informative day. My respect for our Lieutenant Governor continues to grow. I think she's a brilliant woman. Yes, I think Councilor Hazen already mentioned the AGM of the Honey Harbor Association. Also on August 5th, the Community Advisory Group met. I think that's enough of my past month. I'm going to now turn it over to our CAO, because we're going to give her a chance to talk about her communications, her items tracker, and then she's got the first report when we get to staff reports as well. So the floor will be yours for a little bit. Ms. Gunby.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. My communications is very limited, other than as you already said, I did attend that seminar on sustainability, and that was the quote that I took away from it as well, is that things move at the speed of trust. So I thought that was very beneficial the entire day. I don't really have much to report, other than I'm just being the CAO and the Director of Planning and the interim CEO. So it's been a little busy for me. And the action tracker item is there for any discussion for members of council.
Does anyone wish to ask our CEO anything in regards to the action tracker at this point? We know that there's plans to expand it to cover a longer period of time. All right. I think I can speak on behalf of council that we applaud the efforts you're making in this regard, because I think it helps us pay a little bit of attention to what we're trying to do.
Thanks.
Ms. Gunby, with that, you're going to report to us regards to Climate Action Muskoka Resolution, please. Item
Yes.
8A under staff reports.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this report was.
And CEO Gunby, we actually do need to pass the resolution for the action items tracker.
Oh, I didn't think we were doing a resolution for it because it was just under my communications.
It was listed as a resolution, sorry, on it.
We should know better than to argue with the clerk.
Right.
Okay, well, I do have in front of me, be it resolved, moved by Councilor Cooper, second by Councilor Jarvis, be it resolved that council receives the council action items track for informational purposes only. All those in favor? And that is carried. Our clerk has what she needs. Ms. Gunby, back to you.
Thank you very much. So this report is based on the discussion we had last month with the Climate Action Muskoka resolution that they brought forward. That was very lengthy, and if passed, it would have committed the township to have staff work on a separate committee implementing climate action items that we're already doing. So the recommendation in this report is, while still a little longer, it's much shorter than the original one, and it takes out any reference to us having to dedicate time or staff, as we already are doing our own initiatives. And what I did in this report is I just took the chart from the previous Director of Planning's report outlining the services that we pay for and the services offered by the companies that we're paying. And I just took out the things that don't really relate to climate action change. So that's where that chart came from. So if council has any additional questions, feel free.
Council, anyone wish to discuss this matter before I read the resolution? Okay, what I have in front of me is moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Wienko. Whereas United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, 2018 report, global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius states the urgency of keeping global heating below 1.5 degrees Celsius. And whereas the IPCC states the current track of climate heating will lead to catastrophic social, economic, cultural, and environmental impacts throughout the world, and estimates less than 10 years before the worst impacts of climate change are experienced. And whereas the Township of Georgian Bay wishes to protect its economy, community, and ecosystems from the impacts of our changing climate, now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Georgian Bay continues to support the existing declared climate emergency in order to maintain inclusion and the commitment of other municipalities around the world to protecting local economies, our communities, and ecosystems from the impacts of climate heating, and that the Township of Georgian Bay urge both provincial and federal governments and opposition parties to work rapidly to deliver GHG emissions reductions needed to keep global heating below 1.5 degrees Celsius to minimize the threatening impacts of climate change, including by forwarding this resolution to the Premier of Ontario, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Ontario Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Federal Minister of Environment and Climate Change, Norm Miller, the Member of Provincial Parliament for Parry Sound, Muskoka, the Member of Parliament for Parry Sound, Muskoka, Honorable Scott Aitchison, the leaders of the other political parties with members in government, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. All those in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Ms. Gunby, thank you very much. We now have Sustainability Report 2021-16, the Environmental Report Card. Ms. Schneier, I believe this is your report. Oh, I don't see Ms. Schneier.
I don't see Ms. Schneier, but I see Trish, and I assumed that's what she was here for.
Ms. Walton, are you presenting on behalf of Ms. Schneier?
Through you, your mayor, yes, I guess so. I totally was just here to listen to see how it went, but I can most definitely present on it. You just give me 2 seconds.
While you were taking those 2 seconds, I think that if we look simply at pages 51 and 52 of our agenda, there's a very effective summary of the actions we have done to date. I'm sure the council has reviewed those pages. And that is, I presume.
I'm in agreement, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hazelton.
To fill some time while we're waiting, which is fine. We've already heard from me and the concerns that I've shared with the water quality testing. We've heard from Councillor Wienko and the issues with massive algae growth. And I am very, very concerned that this environmental report card seems to omit the water challenges that we are having in our township. Last year we had blue-green algae blooms in Little Lake and others. Obviously Stewart Lake is seeming to be a real problem. And I think that first of all, if I read this environmental report card, it sounds like our township is doing great. Thank you very much. Move on. But in fact, we have a disaster pending in water quality. And I say water quality, that's a very loose term, a combination of massive aquatic vegetation growth as well as water quality issues. And I'm concerned that this environmental report card will cause people to think that everything is fine, don't need to do anything, when in fact it's not fine. And we have an enormous amount of work to do to clean up this disaster we have that is forming in the water. And we are heading in many of these water bodies for blue-green algae blooms. As I say, we've already had them in the past. They are pending, and we already know that, for example, in South Bay, we have in low levels of water, 15 feet below the surface, we have blue-green algae blooms. And so we should be ensuring that our environmental report card gives us the full picture with all of these problem areas so that we can focus on the problems. I love good news stories. Yes, that's great. But where we have problems, we need to identify those, make them visible, and work on them so that we don't lose track of them and lose our township altogether. Thank you.
If I can summarize, this environmental report card addresses climate change, but it does not address water quality, and we should perhaps get an additional report card on water quality.
Well, if you call it environmental report card, it implies it's the environment, and that's not really what the report card is addressing. So let's perhaps change the name and create a new report card that talks about the areas that we have that are problem areas and allow us to focus on those. That's, if I can paraphrase what I think you're trying to say.
Yeah, thank you. Councilor Rienko, I believe I saw your hand.
Well, I think we got to be careful when we talk about emergencies and catastrophes and so on when it comes to water quality. Our water quality has not been changing over the last 20 years. But what's been happening is that, yeah, there's been a few algae blooms. They happen every year. It's not surprising they happen up in Stewart Lake. Stewart Lake has one of the lowest nutrient levels of any lake in our township, and yet they still have blue-green algae and so on. So that's why there's doing a study up there, and we should wait with those results before we start panicking. But if you really want to talk about water quality, then we should have the experts in from SSEA or from the Muskoka Watershed Council to talk about water quality in general in our township and so on. But I think we got to be careful and not get our residents all upset about water quality. I don't think it's any different than it was last year. We've had more weeds this year because we had a warm spring, and the water warmed up a lot sooner, and we have more native weeds. However, the Eurasian milfoil is increasing more and more each year, and that's another issue that needs to be dealt with, but there's not much, we've had 3 seminars over the years on that. So people are well aware of what that. So I wouldn't get into calling it a catastrophe. I think if you really want to get an independent review, then we should have the SSCA or the Muskoka Watershed Council come to one of our meetings and explain what's been happening. But I would caution.
Thank you, Councilor Cooper, followed by Councilor Jarvis. Oh, and wait, before I go to Councilor Cooper, Ms. Walton, did you want to make any additional remarks? After all, we were supposed to get a report at some point, and then we'll go to Councilor Cooper, followed by Councilor Jarvis.
Absolutely, Your Worship. Thank you so much for that minute. My computer was just being a little bit slow. So yes, this environmental report card was meant to kind of give an outline of the projects that have been completed. There, of course, are always going to be things that we need to work towards, like you're talking about water quality, or you're talking about weeds, gypsy moths, stuff like that. We have that on page 2 of, just the endless projects that we'll be working towards. But if you can take a look at this report card and see, like you said, it's our good news report. It's based on the things that have been accomplished, and it may have taken a few years or what have you, but this is a great opportunity just for us to have a starting point of like, this is where we got to. And yes, there are always going to be future projects and what we can look forward to. So if you have any questions regarding the projects that are already completed, absolutely. All other questions regarding future goals need to be discussed with my director. So
okay,
all I have
thank
for you.
Councilor Cooper.
Yes, and thank you for that report. Certainly nice to see positive news, and I don't want to be in any way suggesting alarmism, but I think it is important for us to remember that a couple of things. One is that we've had an example of blue-green algae on Georgian Bay in the archipelago, Sturgeon Bay, where people couldn't use the water, the animals couldn't go in the water, the real estate values went in right down to zero practically. It was a real problem. And I don't want to suggest that we're at that stage, but we could be in the future. And so I think it would be very helpful if we're talking about an environmental report card to be focusing on water quality as well. And while I appreciate the organizations that Councillor Wianco mentioned, we do have really an Ontario expert in our midst, and Dr. Pat Shaw-Fraser, who's doing work for the Township of Georgian Bay in some of these areas, not all of them, not on Stewart Lake that I'm aware of, but certainly on South Bay, Honey Harbor, and a number of other areas around up and down the coast of Georgian Bay, and that could be part of the reporting, and she could probably give us a little bit of insight as to what we should be worried about or not worried about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, I'm in mind in line with Councillor Hazelton in that our environmental report card, comments from Councillor Cooper also notwithstanding, is great to have. I think it's marvelous to see things that have been moving forward and things that we're working on. But I think one of the things we've got to show is, I mean, it isn't all good, obviously. I read the beach closing announcements through District of Muskoka, and I find that very concerning. And to me, that's sort of the canary in the coal mine with regards to all our lake systems. I can understand why a beach closing might take place in and around Toronto, a large urban hub, but I really have trouble understanding why we have beach closings on what would be considered to some people almost pristine lakes, which I know is not quite the case, but by comparison to Lake Ontario, we should be in much better state. And I really do think that we should be paying significantly more attention to the state of our small and inland lakes and bays, not to mention the larger bodies of water, which I know are already being studied. I would like to see, if we move right back to the environmental report card, and if we can have Tricia just take this back to our directive in sustainability, in that we should probably be, she says sustainable balance. I think that report should be a little bit more balanced. In other words, yeah, by all means, show what we've been able to do, but we should be showing in greater, bolder print the things that need to be done and where people need to be doing some more work. And I think that's extremely important. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I think the message I'm hearing from this is, as much as we appreciate this report card, we would like to see an update in regard to what I'm going to call the water quality and the weed growth. And I'm hoping that Councillor Wianco is right in that there's nothing that we have to panic about, but I don't doubt that it's a matter that needs to be continue to be addressed, be monitored and addressed, including identifying sources, and to what degree are our sources septic beds versus boats versus nature versus who knows. I'm afraid I'm not the expert on it. Councillor Hazelton, you wanted to add a remark?
Just one kind of closing remark on it, and that is that we use the phrase water quality, and sadly that's not the full picture. It's like a halftime score. We need to understand what is going on and what the human impact is in our water bodies, and that human impact is reflected both in water quality and in aquatic vegetation. And the aquatic vegetation is showing up as, in some cases, blue-green algae, in other cases, massive weed growth. And so far, there is no organization who has ever stepped foot in our township who has brought those worlds together. And as I said, I had a very fruitful conversation with the doctoral students that Pat Shaw-Fraser has. They, I think, finally got the gap that we are dealing with here. They have promised for follow-up conversations on it. But I think that we need to understand that when we use the term water quality, we channel the conversation into one area, and people look at historical stats and say, well, water quality ain't changing very much, so we don't have a problem. But that's only half the problem. So, or half the story. So I would really encourage us to be careful about loosely calling it water quality and really focus more on it's an environmental issue. And we need to understand the true picture of the environment as it's impacting our communities, our inland lakes, our inland bays, and so on. So that's enough said. Thanks, Brian.
Okay, I'll add water body health. And I believe that the SSE has been doing some work in that regard, because I've certainly seen reports from them on that, but I think it's worthy of further pursuit. In the meantime, I do have in front of me, moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Wienko, be it resolved that council directs staff to continue to pursue the goals of the local climate change action plan and the integrated community energy and climate action plans, ICECAP, partnerships as a priority within our township and when working with our First Nation and area municipal neighbors. Councillor Wienko.
I think we should add to that resolution that we do get some expert updates from some of these groups that have been doing long-term water quality work in our township. So I think I'd like to have that on that resolution where we're going to have these people come to our council and talk about what they've been doing in the long term and be able to answer our concerns.
Okay, something to the effect of, and that we request updates from or more further information from those studying our water bodies in regard to blue-green algae or other growths within our water.
Long-term, just say long-term trends.
Okay.
If I may, Mayor Kutsier,
You may.
Long-term trends is not irrelevant. It's extremely important, but the massive aquatic vegetation growth is a recent trend of the last 15 to 20 years that will not be explained by long-term trends. And so if we only ask people to talk to us about long-term trends, and we will miss part of the picture, and we need to understand what is going on right now, what the impact of the last 15 to 20 years has been on our water bodies. So long-term is a relative.
What I've now drafted up is, and that we request long-term trends in aquatic vegetation growth reports from those studying our water bodies. Councillor Cooper.
I think you sort of have it covered there, but I think both. In other words, we need to make it very clear that we're talking about two separate, not long-term trends on aquatic growth. We're looking for long-term trends on water quality, and aquatic growth is a separate matter, effectively. I think that's where Councillor Hazelton is going. I'm not sure, but thank you.
I'm hoping that what I've written here will be understood by staff and those reporting to us, that we want to have better understanding of aquatic vegetation growth and what we can do about it. So I'll try again. Be resolved that council directs staff to continue to pursue the goals of the local climate change action plan and the integrated community energy and climate action plans, partnerships as a priority within our township and when working with our First Nation area municipalities, and that we request long-term trend and aquatic vegetation growth reports from those studying our water bodies. All those in favor? And that is carried by it. That is in favor by everyone. Thank you. And now we have our next sustainability report, 2021-18, and this is regard to CCRF funding in regard to Honey Harbor Park. Ms. Schneier, I see she's trying to connect.
Good morning, Your Worship.
I'm presuming the internet hasn't been your friend this morning.
No, my husband's having surgery in Perry Sound today,
Oh.
so I've been trying to juggle both things this morning. So I'm at the side of the road. I was supposed to be at the Biosphere office, but his surgery got moved up, and so I apologize. I
Well,
apologize. He's in
absolutely.
surgery, and I have 7 hours of quiet.
Oh, see, that's absolutely a priority.
I apologize. I thought we would be able to do both, but I'm here now.
Okay, so we're now on to your second report, and that's regards to funding for the Honey Harbor Park.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. This report is to get your approval to continue to work with FedNor for funding for the Honey Harbor Park. It was a priority of the Community Advisory Group that the municipality look at ways to rehabilitate the park. This funding has come forward through a COVID initiative from FedNor, and we were encouraged to apply. So we have put an application in to rehabilitate the park, and we would like to partner with the Georgian Bay Métis Council on this to ensure that we have some First Nation considerations when we consider the design and layout of the facility.
All right.
So just to put to speed, Your Worship, one thing that did happen was when we were preparing this report, we noticed that priority would be given to applicants who could enter a phase 1 by a specific date. So we did submit a phase 1. A phase 1 does not obligate the municipality at all to the project, but it is sort of a preliminary conversation with our federal agents to say this is what we would like to do. And then from there, FedNor invites us to apply for a phase 2 application. So we did go ahead and submit that, Your Worship, but we don't need a resolution from you to do that. We would need a resolution to move forward.
All right, fair enough. And I think what I will do is I will read the resolution, and then I'll ask council for any comments. And I've already seen Councillor Jarvis's hand. Be it resolved that council, this is moved by Councillor Jarvis, seconded by Councillor Bocek. Be it resolved that council directs staff to apply for and accept funding from the Canadian Community Revitalization Fund in the amount of $710,000 to rehabilitate and repair the Honey Harbor Park. And further, the council directs staff to supplement the application by $237,000 for the completion of funding to a maximum of $950,000 for a project cost funded from Assets Operations Reserve. And further, that council directs staff to request funding in the amount of $1,000 from both Camp Kitchikawana and Camp Queen Elizabeth to support this project, as this location will suit the pickup and drop off of campers for years to come. And further, that council directs staff to work with the Georgian Bay Métis Council to ensure that park elements are representative of the Métis community in the park rehabilitation, as a significant number of residents in Honey Harbor are Métis or silently identify as such. Councillor Jarvis, you had comments, followed by Councillor Rienko.
Yeah, just a couple starting off with, I think that family will always come first. So I don't think an apology is necessary for your being late to this meeting, or even, I'm a little surprised you're here, as a matter of fact. So please, I don't think we should be accepting any apology, because I don't think one is necessary. Next is, obviously, since I worked very hard on this motion, I'm very much in favor of it. I think it's a great idea, particularly for the municipality and also for the local community. I do have one very specific concern, and that is that ice pad. We're talking about redoing it, but without refrigeration, which I understand from a cost standpoint makes sense, but I am concerned with the issues of climate change now. Even the ice pads in Toronto that are refrigerated have limited use, particularly this past winter, because they're open air. And if we, obviously you're going to, the proposal to put a canopy over top is good, will help. But I think we really got to think about how the money would be spent usefully on that specific item within that park. Otherwise, I'm very much in favor of all this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schneider, do you want to respond to that?
I think I would probably defer this over to Brad. He's more the wizard on pads and refrigeration.
Mr. Sokash.
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to the pad, we have been putting ice at Baxter for the since I've been here, and it has been going from about mid-December till I believe the middle of February, maybe a bit later. My understanding is that ice in, ice out dates haven't really been changing with the weather, but I appreciate your concern. We have been doing ice periodically at the Honey Harbor rink as well, but without the canopy, it really gets disturbed by the sunlight. But in addition, the area is used not only for the winter ice, but also in the summer, spring, and fall for various activities, whether it's people playing basketball, which is tough with the uneven surface. There has been some pickleball out there and a lot of additional interest for pickleball. At the Baxter Pavilion, we see that being used quite a bit for pickleball, and I expect that will increase. And if we are able to put a proper surface and cover in Honey Harbor, I think that there will be quite a bit of use there. So even if we set the ice aside and think worst case that perhaps it won't be feasible just using the weather for ice, the other 3 seasons, I think we'll still see quite a bit of use.
Good point. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you. I know I saw another hand, but Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Wayenko.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzier. And this is a question for Ms. Schneier, and that is the location of this park and the comment that the camps would be able to drop off and pick up. I'm a bit confused. There's no water access. So are the camps sending a bus over to this location and then hooking up somewhere with their boats? I don't get the comment about the camps using this facility. Thank you.
Through your worship, when I have gone and watched the pickup and drop off on Saturdays to understand the dynamics of this, the camps do use the park to line up the baggage for campers that are traveling in and out of the camp. Sometimes I see them load up the campers that are being picked up, and their luggage is put in rows based on cabins because there's enough space. And then the arrivals are using the Honey Harbor Park landing. So it's a great asset for the camp because it helps to divide the pickup and drop off, because those are dynamics that happen around the same time. So that's why I would like to partner with them to make sure that what we are doing works with how they're doing their rotation.
Councillor Yanko, sorry that I skipped over you, but I appreciate your patience.
No, I was just thinking, we're going to talk about this topic later, but I was just wondering, with this revitalization of the park, is there any way we can tie it into honoring Bill Davis on some aspects of this park? Rename the park or something like that. So just keep it in mind as we go into talking about celebrating the life of Bill Davis, that this revitalization of Honey Harbor Park may be an opportunity to do that.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Would you like me to read the resolution again, or do you think you have it? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Ms. Schneier, for under your obviously very stressful and busy day, that you were able to take the time to join us for a few minutes. We appreciate that.
Yes, I apologize again. But no apologies to Councillor Jarvis, but I do apologize.
All our best.
But she's still with us for another one.
Councillor Jarvis, you're paying attention. All right, now I just have to find the right page. Oh, this is regard to street banners. Ms. Schneier, do you want to speak about street banners?
I know, I'm muted. Thank you, Your Worship. This report is something that we would like to bring forward to you because it wasn't a budgeted item for 2021, but I don't feel like we should wait any longer to replace the banners that are throughout our communities. So I provided you with 3 options in this report, and I would love if we could have a conversation about the banners. These are these blue banners that you see throughout the community. They are in all of our urban centers, and as I walk the urban centers, I noticed that they're starting to tear place with new images. Initially, when we were discussing doing banners at the senior table, we thought doing more COVID-friendly images on the banners, but we have shied away from that because we feel that the natural assets of our communities would be something that we should still consider to celebrate. So we would like to do another photo opportunity and get access to some photos from local artists. When we do that, we do offer them a stipend to be able to have complete access and control of the image. And there are local artists around the area that have shown up on our social media that have some really great products. We have an artist right now that we're celebrating, Ingrid Celeste. She's since moved out of the community, so we would like to find somebody local. And then update the images that we have on our street banners to be a little bit more current. And we have some access to some stock photography that has been done by Explorers Ed and Muskoka Tourism, but we would also like to perhaps take a few photos in our area.
All right, thank you very much. And so we as council have to choose between do nothing until next year, replace the existing banners for $9,000, or update banners for an additional $1,000 on top of that, or $10,000. I'm rounding to the nearest 1,000.
That's right. Those are the 3 options that we have before you. And if you do opt to do nothing, we will then bring it forward in 2022. But with the first impression being exit 156 into the community of Port Severn, it's a priority for us to get these banners cleaned up as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Council, what are your inclinations? 9,000, 10,000, or next year? Councillor Bocek, followed by Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to really address this immediately. It's starting to look really ratty, and it is the impression that we give to our tourist population and even to our own residents. I would be willing to go the full Monty on this and take care of it now, not wait till next year, and apply whatever is needed to get new, colorful, bright, vibrant flags out there. Thank you.
Thank you. And my request to Ms. Schneier is to make sure your photographers do not catch the full Monty.
Noted. Okay.
Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, I find myself with Councillor Bocek. I'm not big on additional expenses these days, but I think in light of the fact that we may be seeing an end to the immediate emergency with regards to the pandemic, more people will be on the road, and I think we want to show ourselves as being clean community, and that's part of it. Showing ourselves well is very, very important. It would have been nice. I think timing's an issue here, but it would have been nice if we could have had a bit of a photo contest out of this to see, give people the opportunity to have their photos up on banners. Having said that, I'm without going to the full Monty. I think the higher amount option 2 is the best bet.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper.
I support the same approach. I think do it right or don't do it at all, and I say do it right, correctly, and to get the best outcome. And I'd really appreciate not having that full Monty visual. Thank you.
So I have moved by Councillor Rienko, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Be it resolved that the mayor and council direct staff to take option 2, the 10,087, for the purpose of repairing and replacing brackets and banners in the township of Georgian Bay, funded through the working fund reserve, if required, as this item is not in the 2021 budget. And further, the mayor and council direct staff to sole source the purchase of the banners to Flags Unlimited, as the template, hardware, and banners can be efficiently repurposed using the same supplier. All those in favor? Councillor Bocek, you have a comment?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To our sustainability officer, we've talked here about replacing and putting new up in Port Severn. Is there a need throughout MacTier, up at Whites Falls, Big Chute area? I know we have some other banners and flags around, or is it just for the Port Severn area?
Through your worship, Councillor Bocheck, it's for Honey Harbor, Port Severn, and MacTier. We don't have any flags, and some of the park in Port Severn. We don't have any flags right now at Whites Falls. If that's something that council would want us to do, I think I might have to bring you back to council and have a discussion, because I think that's on a district road, and there's might be, right now we have privileges and access to what we have, and we just want to replace as quickly as possible, which is why we're also asking you to sole source. If you want us to go and do more, I think it would require a little bit of work with the district, which might slow us down.
No, that's fine. I was just thinking $10,000 was a lot to spend just on the signs in Port Severn area. But if we're doing Honey Harbor and MacTier, I see where the budget is at that, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Councillor Wienko, you had an additional remark as well?
Yeah, that just brings up an idea. Like I think since the Big Shoot and the Marine Railway is a big attraction in our township, I think in the years to come, and maybe next year, that we could put a couple of flags up in that area alone, because that's an entrance to our township plus a major tourist attraction area. So just a couple up in that area and work with the district, but not this year, but maybe next year. I think that'd be a great idea.
All right, so a little verbal direction of something to look into. In the meantime, council, you prepared to vote? All those in favor, and this is for option 2, the $10,000 option, and that is carried unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Schneider, thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll be here in the background for the rest of the day, but I
Okay.
apologize for being late.
All the best to
Stop
Alec
with
and
the
your family.
apologies, please.
Yeah,
Thanks.
fingers, hoping for everything to come out well for you.
Yes. Okay. Let me get to the right spot here. I guess under new business, we're into new business already. And the first item on our new business is a resolution in regards to the new federal statutory holiday. To our CAO, Ms. Gunby.
Thank you, Your Worship. The resolution speaks for itself. The federal government implemented September 30th as a federal holiday for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And in order for us to also have that statutory holiday, we just have to pass this resolution so that if passed, we can implement it into the union agreement and all of our other agreements.
All right, the resolution reads, moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Jarvis, be it resolved that council authorized the Township of Georgian Bay to recognize September 30, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, as a regulatory statutory holiday for all township staff. Council, any discussion? Councillor Wienko, followed by Councillor Jarvis.
So this is a federal initiative. Is the province going to be following this? Because we don't want to be the only township in Ontario that does this. It should be province wide, or I'm just confused as to what the province is doing this.
I can only assume, but if the province was the one who initiated it, it would already be a given holiday for us. But because it's federal, for some reason, I need to get council permission for this. I don't know who else is doing it. I can only assume that most would, out of respect and the topic of the holiday.
Councillor Jarvis, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat as Councillor Wienko on this. Two things. Well, my first comment is, well, if there's a holiday anyway, it seems rather redundant that we have to approve this, because I mean, most of the people would probably be taking the holiday whether we approve it or not. I guess it's our staff that are included. Get the Ms. Gunby has sort of clarified things, but yeah, I think we should find out what the province's plans are on this as well. But other than that, I obviously agree with the idea.
Councillor Cooper.
I don't want to repeat, but I think what I've heard both from Councillor Jarvis and Wienko makes sense. So I'd support a little more information to validate what's going on and where. Thank you.
I'm sensing based on the three comments so far, you consider it premature to call the vote. Councillor Hazelton, followed by Councillor Jarvis.
Based on the characteristics of our township and the values that the Indigenous communities bring to our township, I think that almost any way that we can raise the visibility of that is important. And if the feds have identified this as a day that we can document and raise visibility of, I'm quite prepared to support it as it is. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Jarvis. Oh, you just muted yourself, Councillor Jarvis.
Sorry about that. I find myself in agreement with Councillor Hazelton as well. So I'm a little conflicted. I think that I would vote in favor of this, but could we vote in favor and with the proviso that we find out what the province's stand is going to be on this? I don't know if that works or not.
Ms. Gundry?
I can just take that as direction. I'm looking online right now, but there's nothing. It's just stating because it's the federal holiday, all federal public service employees are just given the day, but as we're municipal, we have to ask this permission. But I can find out who else will be doing it, but I can't imagine.
I think from the standpoint of our our relationship with the Indigenous community, I think it's rather important that we do take this step. So I have no problem with that. I just think we better find out where the province's stand is on it.
Yeah, I'm afraid, I'm saying I agree with 100%. I think that we should do this. We have Indigenous neighbors nearby, and I think that out of respect for the process, I think this is one way to highlight our support, and I would certainly encourage people to take advantage of this day to learn more about truth and reconciliation and the Indigenous history in our area. So I'm all in favor of myself. Shall I call the vote? Okay, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that is now unanimous. That is carried. Thank you very much. All right, now we have two additional new business items that came up. And the first one, Councillor Jarvis, you asked that we have some discussion around honoring the former Ontario Premier Bill Davis. Do you want to lead off that discussion, Councillor Jarvis?
I think enough's been said already with earlier in the meeting with regards to the premier way back in the 70s, early 80s, up to the mid 80s. I just remember the PC party as a big blue machine, and while that can have interesting connotations in my mind, it seemed to be all good, which is interesting when you think of. I don't think of the Progressive Conservative Party as being necessarily something that's something I'd be keen on, particularly in view of current federal and provincial parties. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is that Bill Davis made a great mark on our province and certainly in our community as well. And prior to his role as premier, he was an education minister and did a lot of great work in that regard as well. There's something we should be doing, and I'm sure there's something we can do that would certainly honor his work with the province and our community. Yeah, I like Councillor Hazelton's thoughts. I also hearken back to thoughts with regards to other property within the municipality. And while some of this maybe we can't really talk openly about, I think we should give this due consideration and work on it as quickly as possible.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
First of all, thank you, Mayor Kutzer, and I'd like to thank Councillor Jarvis for raising this issue, and I certainly have already expressed my thoughts about what former Premier Davis has done for us in Ontario over the years. I think there's some excellent ties, particularly with Georgian Bay and this premier, including not only was he Minister of Education, but as I understand it, he also brought in one of the first environmental departments as a ministry in Ontario prior to almost anywhere else in North America, as I understand it, or something to that effect. So there's the environment, there's education, and also somebody that's have been a lifelong resident, seasonal resident on Georgian Bay. So I think it's important to be aware of that, and we need to find a way to do something about that. We've had this opportunity in the past, and I think it's time that we take it up much more seriously this time in terms of trying to find an opportunity. And I have expressed something else, which is that should that happen, it would be under provincial auspices. And obviously, we've had some very worthwhile discussion with certain private enterprises in the area, and that would help us, maybe allow us to focus on this. So after our call today, I plan to make some calls to see, and I would like to talk to the mayor about this as well, to see what we can do to instead of trying to push a rope up a hill, go to the top of the heap and get a hold of the premier and see what we can do. So I'll leave that for now, but I'd like to have that conversation with you, Mayor Kutzer. Thank you.
Certainly. Councillor Wienko.
Well, I'm all in support of looking for some kind of a feature or some kind of a structure to honor Bill Davis and so on. Probably a lot of people on the inland community didn't even know he had a cottage out on Georgian Bay, but I think is there any features out in Georgian Bay that can be renamed in his honor? You know, being a federal property or provincial properties is always a process to rename something. I was just wondering if we could put together a small group of less than a half dozen, 3 or 4 people from the community to work on this as a possibility of renaming something. Get a few people together from the Bay, whatever, and look for something, some kind of a structure and so on. So instead of staff looking into it, to maybe we can get a small little group together and go from.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzer. Just to help with the visibility from inland lakes. Those of you who know a little bit about Go Home Lake will know that there's a Voyageurs Club, and we used to portage, or still the cottagers still do portage out into Georgian Bay. The Bill Davis cottage was a milestone that everybody seemed to know about, and it was kind of a navigational point. So well known by many of us on Go Home Lake, although the other inland lakes may not have been aware of it. But I fully support the idea of pulling together perhaps a few councillors and a few community members to work on a good strategy to provide some recognition and remembrance. And I don't want to suggest what that would be, but I would very actively support that. And that's enough said for now. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll also tell you that I am certainly very much in favor of us exploring ways of honoring former Premier Davis. I think that he's a man well deserving of long-term recognition in our area, not just because he was the Premier of the province and the education minister, but because he was a prominent local resident for many decades, most of his life. I mean, perhaps Councillor Cooper can correct me, but I believe he's been up cottaging in our area. I don't know, did he come up as a boy, or wasn't until he was an adult? I don't know, but he's been for many decades. He's been a known presence.
He's a 3rd generation.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. Thank you for the confirmation. Ms. Schneier.
Thank you, Your Worship. I apologize. I just wanted to step in on this one to remind council that we do have that name game happening right now for the Honey Harbor Waterfront Plan, now turned Port of Honey Harbor, that there are 3 elements in there that if any councillor wants to submit the former premier's name, it would be a fair way for his name to be submitted alongside other
alongside other possible opportunities. Okay, I'm going to go Councillor Cooper and Councillor Wienko, and Ms. Schneier. When you unfreeze, we'll let you continue.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzer. And I would ask that we perhaps give it a couple of weeks. I'd hate to, for example, not hate to, but I think we might be missing an opportunity, a bigger opportunity, if we were to sort of take care of this matter, rename the park in Honey Harbor, and miss out on a much bigger opportunity. So I think we need to consider what has been proposed in the past, which is an education center in Honey Harbor. Of sustainable employment could be huge, but we need to strike while the iron's hot, so to speak, and try and get in front of the Premier about something really significant for our community. And so that I would suggest that we not go down this road just yet. Thank you.
Yeah. I believe I saw Councillor Wienko's hand.
Yeah, I tend to agree that we should take some time on this and maybe form a small group, but I would be opposed to having any of the 3 features at Honey Harbor be named after Bill Davis. It sounds too petty to have a structure, a gazebo named after him. So I would look for something a bit larger and a bit more with respect to his name and so on. So I think a small group work together over the next couple of months could come up with something, some better ideas.
Well, then the question I'm going to put to you is, should we formalize that small group, or should we leave it informal as of today? Because we could put a motion in front of ourselves and let's form a structure that includes a few councillors and a few staff member, or we can leave it informal for now and maybe come back next month with something more formal. That because clearly there's a definite interest and nobody's objected to it, but whether or not we need a formal resolution, we'll have to consider. Councillor Bocek, I believe I saw your hand.
Yeah, thanks very much. Obviously, as a youth, I read about Bill Davis in the paper a lot and everything he did for this province. So I have no objections to any of this. He treated my sons with the utmost respect when they were at Admiral's Marina. He was always there to shake their hand and rub their head, and a good fella from my understanding. So while I will not put my name in to a committee, I think we have members of this council that are far more aware of his accomplishments and I think are better suited to sit on this committee. So I'll withdraw my name from any committees, but I certainly support Councillor Cooper, Jarvis and Hazelton being the councillors from the Bay and certainly know the most about him. But you could remove my name from that because I don't think I would serve the committee any justice at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Douglas.
Thank you. I think we at this point can leave it informal because the few councillors from the Bay have more insight as to who would be best sitting on that committee, I think, from the standpoint of the community, and most certainly a worthy committee to put together for the accomplishments over the years with Bill Davis. So I don't think we need to formalize it personally. I think we can let the councillors from the Bay maybe do an informal.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you, and I appreciate the comments from Councillor Douglas and Bocek, and I just wanted to say that I think it's probably advisable at the moment not to formalize anything. I think it's wise to find out who we can connect with to make this happen. It may not be a Township of Georgian Bay initiative per se. It may be a District of Muskoka and Township of Georgian Bay initiative, for example. one of the things I wanted to talk to the mayor about is to who and how we can find somebody that connect this concept with the premier of the province, who probably is very likely interested in honoring former Premier Davis. So that'd be my suggestion. And if it could be left to Mayor Kutzier and myself just to have a conversation initially to identify some opportunities, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Wade, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Worship. Just based off the conversation, I'd just like to make a recommendation that perhaps the resolution is not passed today. There's clearly an intent that everyone is on board, but maybe I know this is all very recent news for all of us, and so maybe a little bit more discussions need to happen behind the scenes and with your worship and perhaps Councillor Cooper and whatnot. And next month we can have a motion come forward under new business again. And if there's a committee, then we'll be prepared to outline a bit more about who those members might be and if there is any joint initiatives or that kind of thing that gives that recommendation. But I think right now, maybe this is a bit premature to have a resolution passed at this time.
All right, thank you. I think that's the feeling of council. I appreciate that all council has spoken in favor of exploring this topic. And I think we all have great respect for the late Bill Davis. And again, I'll repeat condolences to his family, his friends, his neighbors. And maybe we should move on at this point, but thank you everybody for this discussion, and I can guarantee more to follow. Okay, thank you very much for that. And Councillor Douglas, on a whole separate topic, Shore Road allowances. Item 9C. Over to you, please.
Thank you. I think Councillor Cooper may have already brought this up as being questionable, whether it's should be done, shouldn't be done, or whatnot. And perhaps the staff, if I remember, is looking into this. I'm not sure. But anyways, this is based off of another complaint that has come in. I think all of you have received this letter from the same gentleman that I did. It is certainly not the first or the last time I'm going to hear about it, or any of us are going to hear about this. When you have a water access property, your dock is your way to get to your property only. That's it. And if you are not in a position to buy that shore road allowance, and your dock is in disrepair, and this becomes a liability, I think, to the township, and most certainly, putting all of that aside, it's just plain and simply dangerous for a family to try and get off on a dock that is in extreme disrepair and needs repairing. And I think for our township to turn down the possibility to correct, not expand or make, do anything elaborate, but just to do the work necessary to make a dock structure in the same footprint usable and safe to a family. I think we need to question whether we stop that from happening because they cannot at that time be in a position to purchase the shore road allowance. And I think that we should have a discussion about that, because not only do I think this is very dangerous for a family of any sort, whether it be older, younger, children, or whatnot, but I do think it's a liability for our township to hold that process up. Just wondered if comments from anyone.
I've seen Councillor Cooper's hand full, but Councillor Jarvis.
I have a lot of notes about this, and I'm not going to read them all by any means, other than thanking Councillor Douglas for bringing this forward, and I concur with her completely. I think we need some more work on this. I've been doing a little bit of research and have, some views that may be interesting, but I would like to sort of finish doing the research, including speaking to legal experts and also insurance companies in terms of liability. And it's been suggested the township has some liability. I suggest to you that insurance people will tell you that individuals who own the dock have a lot of liability related to this, and probably most of it. And that's probably how the courts would find. So I think it's incumbent upon us to be very even and fair as it pertains to allowing people access to their properties. Obviously, that doesn't preclude or allow for docks to be put in fish habitats or in PSWs, but it does, it is an issue for those that have a dwelling and who have been going to their properties. And if their properties are not in good repair, they need to be able to repair them. And frankly, what we're doing now by what we do is encouraging people just to not get a building permit and just do their work. And a lot of people do that. I can guarantee you that's happening an awful lot. So that in itself makes it very uneven. So I think it's important to remember that. But there's a number of other issues that I would be happy to share with council. I didn't share them in advance of, I wasn't sure we were going to be talking about this today, but I'd be happy to share what I've learned, some of the considerations that we need to think about, and including what about all the shore road allowances that have docks on them and they're not owned? What are we going to do there? You know, those people may continue to repair their docks as they wish and see fit and not getting permits. And that is a bit of a strange anomaly. And I think we need to think about a variety of different things like that. So I'm very interested in also, and mentioned from the last time this came up, that I checked with our two immediate neighbors to the north, the Archipelago and Muskoka Lakes, and they do not require that you buy your shore road allowance in order to be able to replace, repair, reconfigure, even a shore boathouse, a boat covering, a boat with cribs, boathouse with cribs, all those things. As long as it's not a dwelling, you don't have to buy your shore road allowance. So I think we really need to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Bocheck.
Not much to add. I'm in agreement with both Councillor Douglas and Cooper on this wholeheartedly. I want to note and admit that prior to this coming up in this context, I did not know that shore road allowances had to be purchased in order for this type of work to be done. I thought people just wanted to own more land, so they bought them. So this has come as a complete surprise to me, just the fact that we are requiring people to purchase an SRA in order just to do remedial work on a shore structure. I'm finding myself in total agreement with the previous councillors on this. We've got to sort it out, and I would like to see it sorted out in a manner that suits what's just been commented on. Thank you.
Councillor Bocheck.
Yeah, I think the bylaw as it stands is very vague, and there's a lot of ambiguous wording in it. And I'm not sure anybody, I mean, here's our council sitting here discussing this, and some of the council doesn't even know what's going on. So it was brought to my attention about 3 months ago by Councillor Cooper, and I started to inquire, and I found out that the purpose of purchasing your shore road allowance is starting to get abused. And not that we're demanding they buy the shore allowance, but they're voluntarily buying their shore allowance so they can add an addition onto their house to meet their lot coverage. You know, because once you purchase that property, then your lot becomes bigger, and now you have more lot coverage, and you can put a second story on your garage, things like that. And I've been talking to a lot of people about how they've been able to circumvent, how they've been able to do things with, or they've done things without getting it permitted because of the ambiguity that's in the bylaw. So I think we need to review it. I think our staff, not that we need to tax them with more work, but I think we need to come back with a comprehensive report showing us the provincial statutes, what other neighborhoods do, and why we're in the position we're in right now, what brought us to this point, and where are we going to go moving forward. So I think it's more than just a simple resolution brought up under new business. I think this is something that's need to be looked at intensely by our staff, and have council review it and make a decision based on the report brought back to us. So where you want to go with the resolution on this, I'm not sure, but I think wholeheartedly we need to address this issue.
Ms. Dunby, Acting Director of Planning, I think is one of your titles. What do you require from council? Because I definitely have a sense that all of council would like this topic explored and reported back on, even if that grammar is not quite correct. What would you require from council?
Nothing, because I advised last month that the clerk's department is already reviewing the policy. And how
Okay.
we got here, councillors, is that the council approved the policies every time they changed. So what we do, Councillor Jarvis, just because you didn't know, we do not issue permits for people to build things on property they don't own. So that is why, if you want to get a permit, we currently require you to purchase your shore road allowance.
No, I understand that part of it. It was the rest of it that was a bit ambiguous to me, but that's fine. Yeah, I do. I understand that totally. That makes total sense.
Okay, Councillor Hazelton, followed by Councillor Cooper.
In respect to the letter and the concern written regarding the property in Go Home Lake, where there is an existing dock that needs to be repaired, if we had an opportunity to vote to support that resident, I would 100% vote in support. Secondly, when it comes to what are the policies regarding shore road allowance, a long time ago, there was a lot of conversations in Ontario about shore road allowances and people should be buying them. And I know when we bought our property in '93, the understanding was townships are going to start raising the rates for shore road allowance. At some point in time, you're going to want to own it for a variety of reasons. And I think in this study that staff are doing, they should come up with, here are all the reasons why you probably want to own your shore road allowance. And one of them might be that we're raising the rates by 50% again. So at some point in time in the future, you probably want to own it. Thirdly, the issue of giving yourself more lot area, I don't really disagree with that as a strategy. If the shore road allowance in front of your property is generally not usable by anybody else, why shouldn't you own it? Why shouldn't you be able to use that as lot coverage comparisons and things like that? So I don't have a problem with any of that. I firmly believe that everybody with a shore road allowance should buy it. But at the same time, if they haven't bought it and they have a dock or a structure on it that needs to be repaired, I think that we need to fully support their ability to repair it so that they can continue the use of their property. And that's all I have for now. Thanks.
All right, Councillor Cooper, you wanted to also make an additional comment, I believe.
Yeah, a couple of very quick things, just and to be helpful to our CAO. And this is no disrespect to the clerk. I hope that our clerk's department is having a lot of consultation with our planning department and our planning consultants with respect to this particular matter, because there's a number of considerations. And I'll be happy to share the information that I have found out so far. The second thing is that well, I understand what Councillor Hazelton's saying. It, in my view, needs to be considered an opportunity for a landowner to acquire their shore road allowance if they so choose. I don't like saying you have to buy it because you want to repair your dock. That's where I have a real problem. So, and as far as considering shore road allowance as part of lot area, I think the planning department has clarified this a couple of times for us, and I don't know that it actually increases your lot area. I think that I could be wrong about that. I see CAO Gumby. I think she's answered this question maybe quite a long time ago, but could you explain that one to us, please?
Yeah, it was a very long time ago, so it's okay that you don't remember. When someone purchases their shore road allowance, it does not increase their lot coverage because the planning department already calculates the entire area of the property.
So thank you for that. And I would just add one other thing that of some circumstances I'm aware of especially out on Georgian Bay. There are some properties, a number of properties that have a huge amount of shore road allowance, and the people don't own them. When and if they were to buy that shore road allowance, all well and fine, except watch your impact taxes or review of your taxes go through the roof, because you might go from 3/4 of an acre to 3 acres, and impact would say, hey, So now all of a sudden your taxes aren't 5,000, they're 10,000. So there's another issue that some people don't think about. Thank you.
Councillor Bocheck.
Thank you. And just quickly, when it comes to lot coverage, I'm in disagreement with our CAO, Ms. Gumby. I have constituents currently in my ward that have gone to the planning department to build additions on their house, and they've been told they have to buy the shore road allowance in order to meet the lot coverage. And if they didn't buy it, they wouldn't have the coverage in order to put that addition on. And our CAO could go to our planning department and check with them. These applications are in our planning department right now, and that's what these residents have been told. So just to get some clarification there, I think we need to, and the reason I brought it up was because of typical examples that applications are in currently, and they've been told if they want to buy their shore road allowance, they will now have enough property to build their addition.
All right. I think, oh, sorry, Councillor Douglas, I see your hand. I apologize.
It's okay. I think I'm fading in and out with my background. Yeah, I can appreciate what everybody's saying. It's obviously a topic that needs to be dove into a little bit deeper. And I think we need to review the current policy once the staff comes back to us with some suggestions and the research that they've done, given all the information that may be handed over to them by Councillor Cooper and other sources that they will obviously go to. In terms of what I'd like to see come out of today is I think it's really important. We are in the middle of the summer and people are using dangerous docks, and I just think that's totally unacceptable. I don't think we should wait for the policy to be changed, and I do think that there should be some sort of a resolution passed today, or I would like to see that passed today, that on a individual basis, as applications come in for docks of disrepair, which could be a liability to not only the family in terms of insurance, but also safety for their health, that we leave it up to the building department, that those applications are looked at strongly, and the lack of owning the shore road allowance be waived until that policy comes into place. We have another 3 months where people will be using their docks, basically August, September, and October, because the season is, people use their cottages much longer now. I would hate to see for this to go on and on for a few months until we pass something and run into an issue. And I don't think that that's fair to our constituents and residents of this township. So I'm asking that we have a resolution put together today to vote on, to have some sort of an interim situation where our building department can pass building permits on for docks of disrepair for safety reasons. Thank you.
His way.
Your Worship, I would just like to note that as the ones who sell the shore road allowances and who issue the license of occupations, the clerk's office was not aware until just 5 minutes ago of this current situation. There isn't technically a way for the building and planning department to issue a permit, and just perhaps you can correct me if I'm wrong, unless they own the property, or if there's other types of steps involved that can utilize what that ownership is, such as a license of occupation where insurance and our liability is also covered. So that process would need to take place through the clerk's office, and I'm not sure there would be a process for us from a legal or liability standpoint just to pass for building to be able to issue these permits without another process taking place in the background.
There's gonna be.
I was just, in case anything else needed to be clarified. Yes, a license of occupation is one of the other options. Councillor Douglas' suggestion about having a resolution stating, maybe I have it incorrect, but it almost sounded like you were leaving it up to staff discretion to choose who and who don't we give a permit to, and I would not be comfortable with that, because not being a builder, I wouldn't know, and I don't think the clerk's staff would know either. You could pass a resolution stating that for the purposes of building a dock, the purchase of the shore road allowance is not required, or for the purpose of repairing a dock. I know that back in my clerk days, if it was, I think we considered it like a state of emergency. Like if the dock was destroyed in a bad ice storm and you needed to fix it so you could access your property, we would issue the permit then. But I don't know if that is written down in the policy, and if it is, if it's clear or not. but we are listening to all of your points, and I'm sure that the clerk staff, as the minute takers, are definitely aware of everything that you want to be reviewed and looked at.
Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Cooper.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Jessica, then maybe we could have I think that's a great suggestion. I wasn't assuming that the staff in general would make the decision about the building department, who do know their building stuff. But I think you're correct in that suggestion of maybe putting a resolution together stating that the applicant can get a building permit to repair a dock and does not need to own the shore road allowance at this time. And that certainly would get us through the next few months while the policy is being looked at, because I think it's unfair to ask the staff to come up with something really quickly and have us look at this in depth and still facilitate our residents during the time that they're using docks now.
Councillor Cooper.
Sorry, speaking of the building department, I'm just going to send the CBO a quick email as this is a practice that he is the one that implemented it. So we just want to bear with me for a moment.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. And I'm interested to hear what we find out from our CBO, because I think we're talking about a couple of things here. One is this is a practice. Perhaps I don't know that there's any bylaws that we have in place that say you have to have your shore road allowance in order to repair your dock. I very much doubt that there's anything there like that. So it's a practice, and I believe, could be wrong, but I have been following the township for quite a long time. Councillor Wianco even longer than I, but prior to being a councillor, I followed this issue, and I believe there was a push in the early 2010, 2011, 2012 to increase the fees significantly at our township for a lot of different things. And this was seen as a revenue generator. And I think that's when this practice started about 10 years ago or so. I think prior to that, I'm not aware that this township was what I would call forcing individuals to buy the shore road allowance to do something with their dock. So I'm suggesting it's a practice as opposed to some sort of bylaw that's in place. Anyway, if there is one, I'll stand corrected, but it may have been established at the same time that I'm talking about the desire to have greater revenues from fees. Thank you.
Councillor Douglas.
All right, there is just one more thing, because I know you're reaching out to our CBO. When there is a big difference between replace and repair, and I think he's going to have to comment on this. Repair, you can actually do some repairs, surface repairs without a permit, but we're talking about docks that are failing completely that need to be rebuilt in the same footprint. So I just want to be careful on our wording if we do a resolution today that we are clear. I don't think you need a permit to replace the dock boards on the top, and that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about a rebuild in the same footprint of a failing dock, because it's kind of a repair, but it's almost a replacement for some people. It just makes more sense to replace the cribs and everything because those are failing, or whatever they're going to do on steel. Just a note.
Just an FYI, the CBO is trying to join the meeting, so he'll be here in just a minute to clarify.
Thank you. In the meantime, what we're contemplating is be it resolved that council request direct staff to approve building permits for docks that are in need of repair or replacement. Sorry, I didn't get the whole thing. I apologize. Karen, one moment. Be it resolved that council direct staff to approve building permits for docks that are in need of replacement only, and that a license of occupation with adequate insurance coverage be a requirement if the SRA is now owned by the applicant.
Not owned.
No, that's not what you mean, is it?
Not owned by the applicant.
Not owned by the applicant. Councillor Douglas.
Sorry, this is dragging on a little longer than I thought. Jessica, can you tell me what the cost of the license of occupancy is, please, for this?
I think
How do
it's
they
$350 and then $100 annual renewal fee.
$350?
But the CBO is now here, so he can give his comments about the ability to issue permits on property not owned by the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Fedori, are you prepared to jump into the conversation?
There he is.
from what I understand, then yeah. How's everyone? So the problem is you're issuing permits to people that don't own the property. Technically, it's the Township of Georgian Bay that owns the property. There's a liability that goes with it. Trent Severn will not issue any building permits to any properties if the applicant doesn't own the shore road allowance. So bare minimum, if you do decide to go down this route, they would have to have insurance and everything else, and the township would have some liability in the process.
And that includes docks that are over federal waters?
It includes any structure that's not located on the parcel of land that they own. Doesn't matter what kind of property. Like I say, Trent Severn will not entertain giving any building permit or application for renewal, replacement, or anything unless the applicant owns a shore road allowance. We've been down this rabbit hole before, and that's when we decided that they had to purchase the shore road allowance, and that takes the liability right off the municipality. Where somebody's replacing a dock on property that they don't own, technically, if something were to happen, the township assumes liability as well.
Right. Councillor Douglas, followed by Councillor Cooper.
Thanks, Dave, for that information. So I understand that, but what do we do about the docks that are already sitting that people are using to access their property? Are we not in a liability situation already? And my second point is, would this, I don't know that you've heard the resolution, you may not have been on, but would this resolution that our clerk has put together cover us off if the applicant got a license of occupation?
I didn't hear the resolution today. I've been away for 2 weeks. Today is my first day back.
Could you read that again? Okay, could you read that again, please, if you don't mind, somebody, just so.
Well, the
our
resolution,
CBO here.
the resolution's been drafted, reads, be it resolved that council directs staff to approve building permits for docks that need replacement only, and that a license of occupation with adequate insurance coverage be a requirement if the SRA is not owned by the applicant.
So I guess my question to council would be, who's going to make sure that that insurance is in place every year? For if they get this dock and they have insurance, they show you the insurance for the license of occupation, but who's going to watch to make sure that it's renewed all the time?
Clerk
Yeah.
staff keep record of the license of occupations, and as far as I know, send out letters every year to whoever has a license of occupation asking for another copy of it. But my concern is, sorry to sort of take this the other way, I don't think that, now that I'm reading it in the chat, I don't think that we can state council direct staff to approve building permits, like in general. I don't think that's a correct statement.
You know, to consider building permits might be a better one. Because I can't imagine Mr. Fedori issuing a building permit for something based on staff direction.
No, that would, there may be a difference in opinion going
There-
down that.
Knowing you, I can imagine that possibility, yes. Councillor Cooper, you wanted to add to the conversation again?
Well, I just like to say that, well, I'd like to see a resolution to this particular case in Go Home Lake. I do believe we have a lot of information that is needs verification, not only from lawyers, but insurance companies, etc. And, you know, if I don't renew my insurance, I'm pretty sure the courts are going to say, that's your tough luck, you're going to be sued. And you're going to pay it out of your own pocket as opposed to your insurance company. So that's what happens when you run without insurance. So I think there's a lot of other I'm interested in what they do in Severn Township. It is a different set of rules that run the Trent Severn. So however, we do have two neighbors that I've mentioned several times that say we don't do this. We don't need to do this. You can buy your shore road allowance, but you don't have to do any of this that we're making it very complicated. So I think we need more information. Thank you.
Well, there's no question that we need more information. There's also no question that both the clerk and the CEO have said that they're looking into the matter. The only question really is before us, do we want to put something in temporarily to allow one or two individuals to get to apply for a dock permit, even though they don't own the shore road allowance? I see Ms. Boutiette, did you want to add to the conversation?
Yes, through you, your worship. The comment that came up of the insurance being the responsibility of the property owner. With joint and several liability, the municipality always gets dragged in as a person who has unlimited fund, and therefore I just want to make sure that that insurance piece is key to attempting to waive our liability, which is not always successful, no matter how much due diligence we do.
Councilor Yanko.
Well, I'm getting quite concerned about trying to find a loophole for one particular property so they can go ahead and repair the dock. I say this has been going on for over 10 years, and it's always come back to encouraging people to buy the property if they have structures on it and they want to rebuild. The idea is that you don't get a new permit without buying the property. We can't go around to all the properties and say, well, you got a dock on your shore road allowance, therefore you must buy it. The only way we can make them buy it is through holding back a permit. So I'm all for the idea of having to buy your road allowance in order to repair your structures and so on. So I don't like the way this is going. If you get into the idea of having some kind of land use permit, that's going to be very difficult to manage them. They should be the exception, not the rule. So I'm concerned the way this conversation is going.
Thank you. Councilor Hazelton, followed by Councilor Douglas for the sixth time.
I'm intrigued by what I heard in the term of license of occupation. I'm wondering if our building inspector, Mr. Fedori, would approve the repair of a dock if the owner of the property had a license of occupation approved by the township. Is that possible?
So if they have an existing license of occupation that was there and they were just repairing it and it was all intact, then I would have to follow that. But if they don't have one, that's not apples to apples. I understand the need. People don't apply for a dock permit as preventative maintenance. They go up to the cottage and the ice is taking it out or something's happened. They need to do it now. They need to get access to the cottage. And maybe one way that you could go down this is look at doing a temporary license of occupation to get them the dock permit in there, with the understanding that they have to purchase the shore road allowance within 2 years or whatever you deem fair for them to do it. At least this way here, you would get the end goal of getting it on their property and still allow them to access their property.
So
Okay.
just as a follow-up then, if I could, and again, this is directed at Dave, if our lawyer were to provide an opinion that we as a township don't need to force the property owner to buy their shore road allowance, and that it was okay for them, for the building department to issue a building permit, would you have a problem issuing a building permit under those circumstances?
But the problem is you're asking me to issue a permit to a piece of property that they don't own.
I understand that, but we've been doing that for decades. We only stopped doing that maybe 10 years ago. So and as Councillor Cooper said, there are other townships that are doing it. I'm just wondering, in your world of CBO, are there constraints that you are living with that a lawyer could provide an opinion and open up, or is your information and mandate as CBO overriding that?
Well, technically, I can only issue the permit to who owns the property. by the building code. It doesn't allow me to issue permits to other people's properties. So I'd find it hard pressed that a lawyer would agree that you could issue a permit to a property that they don't own.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have been
Okay,
doing
no, hey,
things, and we do make corrections as we're going along. And just because what we were doing in the past doesn't make it right.
I think we have to be careful here. We're having a very lengthy conversation and asking our CBO for legal opinion, I think may be outside his job description. But what I did hear our CBO state was that if an individual has a license of occupation, he would treat them the same way he would treat an owner. In other words, consider the issuance of a building permit if all other conditions are met. Is that correct, Mr. Fedori?
Yeah, if it was an existing license of occupation, I do know that I know that there was one up in MacTier, up on Stewart Lake that come to light maybe 6 or 7 years ago and stuff like that. I don't know how many are out there, but it's no different than an existing MOE septic system. It's an approval.
So, in other words, what I'm hearing is that if an individual does not own a shore road allowance, they might technically have two options in front of them. One would be to purchase the shore road allowance, or two, apply for a license of occupation. If that's the case, we don't really need a resolution. And, okay, Councillor Cooper and Councillor Douglas, I know both of you want to speak to this yet again, but I have to cut this off at a certain point. So I'm going to give you one more chance, and then we'll let Councillor Jarvis jump in, and then we got to end this because we're not going to go on indefinitely. Because we know, and I think staff has understood quickly, readily, and have already offered that they're going to look into this matter further to confirm the shore road allowance situation. And I don't doubt that they'll look at some of our neighbors to see what their practices are and maybe give us more information on that. So Councillor Cooper, Councillor Douglas, then Councillor Jarvis.
Thank you, Mayor Kutzier, and I'm going to share all my notes with the council and with the planning department and the clerk's department, because I think it's both a planning and a clerk's issue. Happy to do that, but I would also remind us that the Crown owns the land under the water. It's Crown land, and then there's shore road allowance, and then there may be an owner of the shore road allowance or not. So there's this issue of riparian rights. And if you study what riparian rights say, the owner has the right to get to their property, period. And we can't sell land under the water. That's Crown land. So, but are we issuing a building permit for something that's out over that water? We may be. And so I just think we need to be careful about what we think we have the right to do or not do in terms of something like I'm just discussing here. So I'll share all of my other notes because it's a lot of information, and it's not just asking a lawyer. It's the questions you ask a lawyer. It's the questions you ask a planning expert. It's the questions you might ask an insurance company. So there's a variety of different sources of information that we need to draw from. Thank you.
Councillor Douglas.
Yeah, very quickly. I think we just got our answer. We probably don't need a resolution because if they have a license of occupation, they can, it sounds like the CBO can. And my only other thing I'd ask the staff to look into is where's our liability for all these docks that are sitting currently with people that don't have ownership of their shore allowance. So I think that if we get a license of occupation to deal with the more current ones, and there's not just one, we got a letter on one, but there are many, then maybe we don't need the resolution. There's already a solution in place. And until the report comes back and we make the proper changes that are going to facilitate what really needs to happen from a liability and safety perspective.
Councillor Jarvis.
I was only going to comment that if we were going to have a resolution, the one we were proposing should include the word repair as replace and or repair, as opposed to just replace. But if we're not going to go with the resolution, that's redundant. But I do feel we need to resolve this one cottage owner's situation sooner rather than later. I could provide another rabbit hole to go down, but I'll leave that aside for now.
I think we have been, the staff have been well rabbit holed and Pandora boxed and what have you with all this whole thing. And I'm looking forward to their research and hopefully we'll be able to come up with some clarification. But at this point, I'm going to suggest we don't need a resolution. We've had an extensive conversation, and I think there are a lot of questions that we have that hopefully the staff will be able to provide some answers in the near future. We'll say thank you very much. That was a good discussion. We don't have any bylaws to pass, and the next on our agenda is a closed session, which we'll be doing at 1 o'clock. So I'm going to suggest that we recess this meeting at 11:10 and we reconvene at 12:55 so we can get prepared for a 1 o'clock closed session. So in other words, you're getting something in the equivalent of 1 3/4 hours to prepare yourself for closed session.
Or have lunch.
Or have lunch. And, you know, given that the topic, which is public knowledge, in closed session, we'll be talking about our CAO, gives her time to worry about what we're going to say. All right, thank you, everybody, and we will see you at 5 minutes to 1. Oh, Councillor Cooper, you wanted to say something?
Sorry, just briefly, are we dialing in on this same Zoom or do we have another Zoom?
New Zoom.
And the new Zoom we can do for both the public and the closed portion of our meeting. Yeah, so we'll use the new link that was provided to us, I believe, by Sydney,
Thank you.
in the last week. All right, everyone. Thank you very much.